Thank you so much. Okay, we are all awake after lunch. That's good. So, I am from Ecuador, Latin America, and I want to talk today about inequality. First, saying something about my country. You know, in Latin America, we suffer from a lot of crime traditionally, but we have been used to that. I remember when I was a kid, the first time I was robbed, someone in the street took my cell phone, and we had this kind of joke. We said, oh, but he was like a good thief because he just took the cell phone, but he didn't do anything else to me, so we're good. Which is kind of a sad joke, but that was an unusual comment. But that has changed in Ecuador. In the past years, you can see this chart, the murders per 100,000 inhabitants have gone crazy. Now it's dangerous in some cities to go out in the street. Drug cartels, two from Mexico, and the Albanian mafia are operating in the country. It's become a mess. But it would be unfair to say that this is a problem that all Ecuadorians suffer equally, because that's not true. You see, I live in a neighborhood. I come from an upper middle class, and in my neighborhood, yeah, you can get robbed, but you don't suffer this. This is suffered in the poorest neighborhoods, in the poorest cities of our country. So inequality in my country literally kills people. And this is part even of a larger inequality, because you see the drugs that generate this violence kill people in Ecuador, but not in the Netherlands where the drugs arrive, in Europe. In Rotterdam and Amsterdam, it's business as usual. So there is also global inequality. And there are a lot of technical solutions that we can discuss about that, but I want to address today a much more basic, fundamental part of this that connects with our Christian roots. And first, let's reflect why this inequality is wrong. Because of a single idea, which is human dignity. Inequality is wrong because we believe, we know that all human beings have an equal dignity. So it is not right that some people suffer more violence than others, taking as example my own country, simply because they were born in a poorer neighborhood. Now, what I want to propose today are two simple ideas. The first is that we cannot fight inequality unless we protect the idea of human dignity. Because if there is no dignity, it makes no sense to talk about inequality. And the second idea is that to fight inequality, we need to practice virtue. Let me go to the first one right now. What is human dignity? We talk a lot about that nowadays, but actually, dignity, it's not an obvious concept. For example, in ancient Greece, Mr. Engo was talking about ancient philosophy and harmony. Well, in ancient Greece, people didn't believe in human dignity as we know it today. Aristotle, who wrote one of the most influential books on ethics in history, talked about equality. For him, equality was that masters should be treated as masters and slaves as slaves. It was an equality based on the social role that you played in a society. But that changed with Christianity. one of the deepest revolutions in history is that Christianity proclaimed that we all have a fundamental dignity, not because of the role we play in our society, in our city, in our country, but because of a simple fact, which is that every one of us, every human being, rich or poor, whatever the region we live in, born or unborn, we all have the same dignity because we all are children of God. And that is what came to generate the modern idea of human rights. And this means that we don't treat people as things that are dispensable, that are exchangeable. People are ends in themselves. They're not means. Because we have an infinite value to protect, as the recent Vatican document, Dignitas Infinita, Infinite Dignity, says, every human person possesses an infinite dignity because we are children of God. Now, why am I talking about this? Because this idea is under siege today. There are many threats to this. We're going to go deeper into that in a second. But if we don't remember this fundamental truth, it makes no sense to talk about inequality. Now, human dignity is not only a concept. It is a practical idea. It has consequences. So let me go to this fellow. Who knows? Who is this? St. John the Baptist. That's right. That's painted by Tiziano in Spanish. I don't know if I spell it, if I said it right in English. St. John the Baptist, when he started preaching, he said, repent, the kingdom of God is coming. You need to change your ways. And then many people were shocked, positively shocked about his message, and they asked St. John the Baptist, okay, the kingdom is coming, so what should we do? And the first thing that the Baptist replied, according to the Gospel of Luke, is this. The crowds asked him, what then should we do? He said to them in reply, whoever has 2 cloaks should share with the person who has none, and whoever has food should do likewise. This is the first thing John the Baptist said. Why? Because every human being has dignity. That means that if any human is in need, and we can do something about it, we are morally obliged. We have the moral duty to act. And that's in the essence of the Christian message. Things are made for humans, not humans for things. This goes way back in the Bible, even in the Old Testament, the Leviticus, you can read, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not be so thorough that you reap the field to its very edge. These things you shall leave for the poor and the alien. And St. John Paul II reminded us that, yes, private property is a fundamental part of the Christian teaching. Any doctrine that denies private property is anti-Christian. But it is also anti-Christian to deny what St. John Paul II called the social mortgage on all private property, in order that goods may serve the general purpose that God gave them, which is to do good for the other. And that is precisely the definition of love, the supreme Christian virtue. St. Thomas Aquinas said, love is willing the good of the other. Not only willing, but doing the good. And if we go further, love implies not a contract with people, which is performing an agreement that can be subject to a certain condition. No, love is about a covenant. What God makes with the people of Israel, what God makes with the new people, which is the church, what I celebrated with my wife, a covenant, which is committing yourself to the other. And if we take that seriously, not just as a slogan, that leads us to the idea of common good. Because if people have dignity, that means we cannot use people. The other way around, we should use things for the good of people. That means, at least, that we should respect everyone. We should do no harm, which is what the law is supposed to guarantee. That's the minimum. But the highest consequence of love is not only not to harm, is to do good to the other. And that is the Christian golden rule. Not only don't do bad things, is do to your neighbor good. Do what you would treat others as you would want to be treated. Love others as you want to be loved. And that means working for the common good, which also implies accepting the idea that we don't live together. There's a beautiful word in Spanish which I think has no English translation, which is convivir, which is living with. None of us lives alone. We all live with each other. The German philosopher Robert Spiemann talked about the Mitsein, being together. And that is in the root of the Christian message. Since we live together and everyone deserves good, then we must practice love, which leads to common good. And there are two ideas that threaten this concept. And as people, not only business people, as people in general, we should resist these two modern temptations. One is extreme individualism, which comes from an extreme version of liberalism, saying we live alone. Community is not important. What is important is what I think, what I perceive, and that's it. And there is no love in that worldview. And the other extreme is the supremacy of the state. There is no community. There is only the state that regulates everything. And that also threatens this Christian worldview that we must uphold. Now, all this only makes sense if we admit that there is a natural law, a natural order of things, which is incompatible with relativism, which is an additional threat to all this. If we think that everyone has his or her own truth, well, then dignity means nothing. Because if I can decide whether you're worthy or not, then you're not objectively worthy of anything. Human dignity needs the belief of a natural law, which is not only about the relationship between us human beings, but is about the relationship of human beings and the whole world. What Pope Francis talks about in Laudato Si when he refers to integral ecology. Developing the ideas of Benedict XVI. He reminds these words of Saint Francis of Assisi. who shows us just how inseparable the bond is between concern for nature, justice for the poor, commitment to society, and interior peace. We humans have freedom, and that's a precious thing, which is also fundamental to the Christian worldview. But we also have a nature to respect. And if we exercise our freedom, whether it is in business, in sexual life, in our relationship with nature, if we exercise that freedom violating the natural order of things, we can do it. God gave us freedom. It's up to us. But we pay the price. But we pay the price, and this is common sense. But this common sense is being lost in the modern world. And again, if we don't remember this, it makes no sense to talk about inequality, because there would be no objective basis to defend equality on human dignity. Let me just tell you a short story from my country, Ecuador, that shows why if we break natural rules, we can do it, but we pay the price. We have this mining project in Quimsacocha, which is 4,000 meters high. I was once there walking an hour. It was tough. And there is a very important water source there. So there's a debate whether there should be mining or not. I'm not a technical expert on that. My belief is it should be done as long as environment is respected. But the dilemma and the relevance for this that I understood walking through that, the Páramo, for an hour, was that, wait a minute, this is not only about respecting the environment. Because the water that comes from Quimsacocha, from that place in the highlands, actually is the water that farmers use for their land. It's the water that we need for our stock. It's the water that goes to the cities. So this is not only about defending nature, it's about defending human life. And it's also about defending the economy, because mining can give you money for a while. But actually, what can give you money forever in our country is agriculture. I'm not saying you need to choose between one or the other, but it wouldn't make any sense to sacrifice a long-term asset for a short-term gain, in merely economic terms. So again, this shows that you can break the rules, but you will pay the price with regards to nature, to human life, and also to economics. Benedict XVI in Caritas in Veritate explained this very clearly and beautifully. He said, the book of nature is one and indivisible. It takes in not only the environment, but also life, sexuality, marriage, the family, social relations, in a word, integral human development. Our duties toward the environment are linked to our duties towards the human person, considered in himself and in relation to others. Herein lies a grave contradiction in our mentality and practice today, one which demeans the person, disrupts the environment, and damages society. Now, let's look at what happens nowadays in the world. Talking about our region, we are one of the most Catholic Christian regions in the world, but the most unequal in the world. Something wrong there. We are losing Christian roots in large parts of the world. Can we keep defending dignity and human rights if we forget about all this? Natural law implies that you recognize a power above you. If not, why should you respect any law, any natural law, if the human being is all powerful? But we don't recognize today, many don't recognize today, any superior power. And denying natural law leads to denying dignity at the end. And that's why we are failing to protect the family, the unborn, and nature. Because this is all part of the same problem. Technology. I said at the beginning, dignity is about treating people as people and things as things. And understanding that things are for people, not the other way around. But are we living up to that idea, regulating, for example, AI, medical research, privacy in social media? The Pope in Laudato Si talks about reducing birth as an economic solution. What is that? Saying, okay, let's sacrifice people to protect the economy, to protect things. That's the inverse logic of human dignity. And also in politics, we're seeing worldwide a rise of populism, an anger of the people against elites. And Pope Francis warns about the disconnection of elites in business, in politics, in public opinion, in journalism, you name it, with the reality of the everyday people. So it's easy to predict that people will get angry about that. These are not isolated challenges. These are part of the same one big problem. The cry of the earth and the cry of the poor are connected because they both violate what Pope Benedict called the book of nature. And this is what Pope Francis denounces as the throwaway culture, treating people as things, which is the opposite of what we should be doing. I love the Beatles, so I wanted to include them today in the presentation. The problem is that we want to buy love, we want to buy happiness, we want to solve the human issues, reducing them to material needs. And that is quite at the essence of modern mentality, and that's what we need to change as Christian leaders in any aspect of life and, of course, in business. And I want to share what Professor Arthur Brooks from Harvard, I had the privilege to study with him this year. He teaches about happiness in the Harvard Business School. It's one of the most demanded courses. He kind of jokes about that because people are supposed to go there to learn about business, but actually they want to learn about happiness. Because this is a human need. And he's a very Catholic guy also. And I think he's the evidence in that environment that at the end, you can make all the money in the world, but people want to be fulfilled at a different level. And he says, you can't buy love, as the Beatles say, because happiness is a harmonious relationship, balance between faith. You need some transcendence in your life, whether it's Christian faith or other. You need family, stable relationships throughout life, and friends. And actually, this is a development of what Professor Robert Waldinger, also from the Harvard Medical School, discovered, that people who have strong relationships throughout life, regardless of their social or economic status, are happier. This was a study made throughout 60 years in a row that arrived to that conclusion. And also work, which is important, devoting yourself to what you love in your everyday life. But he said, yeah, you can kind of disaggregate those four aspects, but it all comes to one thing. He says happiness is about love. And if you understand that, the rest will put in place easily. So, what do we do with all this? Because we see a challenge in the world. How do we change a logic where people are treated as things? How do we face the challenge of technology and AI? What will we do as business people if we start seeing that we can do the same work more efficiently with, I don't know, a tenth of our workforce today? That's going to be a social problem. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on people in business to decide whether I keep workers, even if it's not the most efficient thing to do, or maybe we will need a broader conversation about tax and social programs derived from this reality. Can we keep the level of consumption and expect all the world to consume as the US, China, Germany, the developed world? Can the planet sustain that? Christianity has a very old solution for this. And it's not about political ideology. It's not about business plans. Because Christianity already faced an environment which was equally or more hostile to the Christian message than today, which is the world in which the first Christians lived. And how did they change the world? How did they change the culture? It wasn't with politics and business only. Politics is great, business is better, but that's not the essence. What Christianity said is that, among other things, we need to practice virtues, especially love. And if we do that, everything else will start to change. This is the essence of the Christian message. The Christian path for change has always been virtue, and especially the virtue of love, which is the supreme virtue of all. And virtue is not about talking. Talking is great, is what I'm doing now. Nothing bad with that. But it's about doing. Virtue is the habit of practicing good things, to put it in simple words. It's about our personal life, about our family, about our job, about our business. It's an ethical challenge that demands an ascetic response, an ecology of the ordinary life, as Pope Francis says. And this is an interesting quote from the Compendium of the Social Doctrine of the Church, which talks about economy, politics, social issues, but at the end says this: removing injustices promotes human freedom and dignity. That's great. Nonetheless, the first thing to be done is to appeal to the spiritual and moral capacities of the individual and to the permanent need for inner conversion. Inner conversion. If one is to achieve the economic and social changes that will truly be at the service of man. And I think this is the essence. This is what we need to remember and practice today. An ethical challenge demands a change in values, but they won't change the world if we don't change values. And we won't change values if we don't start with ourselves. You already know this. An inner conversion. An inner conversion that leads to a cultural revolution. That's what we need. A cultural revolution as the first Christians did. And they had it way worse than us. And they did it. It's history. We just need to look at what they did and practice it now. Different challenges, different realities, but the same essential truths. This is the overarching theme today is about new paradigms for sustainability. Well, this is an old paradigm, but it's like the gospel. Old and new. It's a treasure with old and new things that are always present and relevant. So let's talk about some virtues. I don't know how we are with time. Oh, okay. I'm gonna rush. So, one virtue, hope. One of the main virtues of our faith. We need to believe that things can change if we act. Without hope, we become paralyzed. That's not the Christian way. And hope requires something that starts with age also, humility. Because we can see all the challenges and say, this is overwhelming, this is too much. But if we're humble, we will do our part and let God take care of the rest. I like to think about it this way. Let God be God and we're just humans. God will multiply the loaves. He only requires us to give 3 or 4 loaves and he'll do the rest. But let's do our part with hope. Justice. Remember the poor widow which Jesus commended? She gave everything she had. Justice in the business environment is not about donating your surplus. It's about giving what people need. That's the Christian rule. And St. Paul in the Acts of the Apostles says he worked hard so that he would help the weak. Business is great. It's a God-given activity. And it's good if it works for the good of the others. Poverty, which is not giving away everything. We all have assets, possessions, and the business environment. That's great because that's what we need to make money. And businesses need to make money. But remembering things are not ours. Things belong to God. And they must be used for the good of the others, the common good. Prudence, which means knowing what to decide in a concrete situation. And a word about the virtue of prudence. This is threatened by technology today. If we substitute human decision making in fundamental things with, for example, AI, we are denying the very possibility to practice this virtue. Because prudence implies to recognize that the human activity is unpredictable. Why we need prudence? Because we cannot predict what people will do. So we need this virtue to discern in the right moment what to do. A machine can't do that. And I'm not saying AI shouldn't exist. It's good. But we shouldn't leave some fundamental decisions that imply or are related to human values. And all this requires leadership, of course. And sometimes we say, well, where are the leaders? Where are the church leaders to do all this? Well, the answer is look in the mirror. You are the leaders. You are the leaders, but because we are all called to be light of the world and salt of the earth. So let's live up to that with hope, with justice, with poverty, with fortitude, being strong and courageous, because this is hard. But as God told Joshua, be strong and courageous because I'm with you. And with love. Leadership at the end is an act of love because it implies devoting our lives, our talents, our business capacities, our leadership capacities for the good of others. So let's practice virtue, let's lead change, let's start today. Thank you very much.
Wow, this room is so small. Incredible, wasn't it? Really inspirational. So, as we are short on time, I don't know if anyone would like to raise a question. I will do it, okay? And the first one is, you can stand up, just to make it more informal. And the first one is, we all look for the best talent, the best wise people, those that are more proficient, right? Is the way that we recruit. And what Hector presented us is a different perspective. It doesn't mean that the other one is wrong, but putting all together with the Christian's virtues is the right place. And my question for you, as a teacher, as a professor at the university, are you teaching your students in their heart, in their mind, on having these values? I mean, not just capabilities, competencies, and so on, but character.
It's hard. It's hard because this is not only about knowledge. This is about transmitting values, which is a very hard thing to do. But I would say two things quickly. One is that we should tell people about the Christian roots of all this. Because today, for example, take human rights. I teach law. And many law students don't know that human rights have anything to do with Christianity. I mean, they sometimes think they're opposite, which is crazy. I mean, there would be no idea of human rights without Christianity. So sometimes just telling this is important. And not with a pretension to convert anyone. I mean, this is just teaching history. But it's very important to clarify that. And the other is trying to teach by example. And of course, that's difficult because none of us is perfect. And we can't wait to be saints to try to do this. But if we at least have the honest intention to live up to this, I think showing that and practicing your faith without any pretension of show, but not hiding your faith is also important.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Joe. Congratulations for your courageous and brave presentation. We are all business people, Christian business people, that try to promote UNIAPAC in our own societies. And one of the most difficult tasks that we have on our daily basis is to promote our Christianity and not face that the door is being smashed against our face. Because the political, especially in Europe, the political environment is such that Christians are really put aside, ignored, and most frequently gone against. So my question to you is, how can we face that reality without creating a problem within our business? How can we be, coherent with our faith and at the same time not to prejudice our business. I know it is a magical recipe, but Hector, you have the means. Thank you very much.
Oh, I know it's, yep.
Oh, give me just 1 second, because Hector also worked in the past for the government of Ecuador. How lucky they are that we have a man like this working for government. So please reply to this in your perspective, not just as a teacher, but as a public man that work for the public policies.
Yeah, well, I was a congressman for 4 years, so believe me, Congress is worse than business. And I mean, there's no easy answer to that. And Europe is a different reality than Latin America because it's the culture is more difficult for Christians. Yeah. But we can't look away, even if it hurts. And I mean, I can just share my experience, and I'm not a businessman. But yeah, I was attacked at some point. Your family is attacked. The first Christians had it way harder. They got killed. So I think we need to be brave. I think we need a lot of faith for that. It's hard to do it only with natural means. That's why we need this virtue of fortitude. And that's why we need community, because it's hard to do it alone. But that's why networks like UNIAPAC are so important, and others. But I want to stress this. I mean, what you guys are doing here is very, very important, because it's difficult to fight alone. But if we fight together, even if we are not in the majority, God gives us strength through one another. So I think the network is crucial to do this.
Hector, we're pleased to have you here. Congratulations. And I want to add another paradigm. Right now, where I live in Mexico, it's been a measure in high school, and it's 900 from 15,000 alumni, 900 that needs psychological attention. They're thinking of suicidal thinking. I don't know exactly the name, but it's suicidal thinking. They have a loss of sense of life. They don't even know what even that means. And it's very connected with the dignity of the human being. How can we do with that? You're in a university, so it's a very, very difficult and tough thing. I would like to give you some advice because, you know, we don't have enough psychologists to attend the 900 people in my town. We're suggesting that priests in the morning that have a little time free, go and help those guys.
Well, that's an
We just have 5 minutes, okay?
Okay. That's a really tough one, and I don't know much about psychology, but I would just say that I think a big part of that is connected with a loss of this message. I mean, there's a part that requires psychological attention, and we need to do everything we need to do socially, economically, and technically to provide it. I mean, and that's it. I mean, that's what we should do. But also, I think there is a broader cultural problem. If we are constantly delivering the message that all you need is not love, as the Beatles said, but your smartphone or money, whether you become a drug dealer to do that, which is happening in our country, I mean, that's the message that kids are receiving. You should be successful. If it's a boy, you should just have money, drive a nice car, and have a lot of girls. If you are throwing into kids that message all the time, you're gonna provoke suicidal thoughts at the end. And I think we need to change culture too.
So two last questions.
Sir Hector, maybe what can you suggest? Because nowadays, I think it's all over the world, technology is advancing. And because of this advanced technology, prayer life of people in the families has lost because of that. What can you suggest for the families or the parents, for the children, for the employer, for the employees? Can you suggest something that can revive the praying habits of our Christian?
And the last one.
Hector, I think there's no problem with the values and the program that you are talking about. I think the youth are now bombarded, as you said, by a tsunami of materialistic values through social media. So we need a way of delivering this platform to them. I believe that's what we have to find, or perhaps you can suggest that, because social media is so overpowering that we do have the right message, but we have to counter that platform. What can you suggest?
St. Paul, when he went to Athens, he talked about the unknown God, which was one of the gods that they were worshiping in the Aeropago. I don't know how you say that in English. So he used a part of the culture to expand, to deliver the Christian message. He was smart. So technology is a problem, the abuse of technology, because technology is morally neutral. Technology can be a great thing. So let's use it for good. Let's use technology to deliver this message. If, I don't know how many million Christians, Catholics, we have in the world. I don't know if someone has a number.
1.7 Christians, no, billion.
Well, if 100th part of that starts doing something about this, we can change the world. So let's do it. One more? That was a quick answer.
At what time should we be back? 5. So we are already on 5. A short one. Final one.
I'm trying to Google what's the quote of Pope Francis about a politician. Actually, you have your sacrifice and everything. Did you do that for running for Congress because you want to imbibe as a Christian? I'm trying to Google it, but I cannot find it. He said that before the election, during our presidential election. Running for an office is a sacrifice. Being a politician is a sacrifice. So, did you do that when you ran for a congressman?
Sacrifice?
No, sacrifice like,
Yeah, a bit.
yeah, I mean, is that your slogan or something?
Yeah, well, I think that when God calls you to do something, whether it's politics, and also whether it's running a business, it is a sacrifice. I mean, and I think I couldn't run a business, and some people couldn't run for office. I mean, there are different things. But Christianity also always demands the cross. I mean, I left that part out, but love for Christians is practiced through the cross. There's always sacrifice. Actually, if there is no sacrifice, that means something's wrong in Christian terms. So we should respond to God's calling, and if there's sacrifice involved, then that's a good sign. So, and none of this is easy. Speaking up, as you were saying, in an anti-Christian environment, it's hard. It will cost. And that's why we should do it. Thank you.
So this man put all together in a unity of life. The character, the intelligence, the knowledge, everything all together. And all this professional and personal life. We need to thank him and tell Hector, God bless you, God protects you, and guide your life. Okay? Amen.
Thank you. God bless you too. Thank you so much.